Hey guys, tonight we're stepping inside a monastery, but not like the ones you've seen in peaceful postcards or sleepy travel documentaries. This one holds a rumor, a knocking sound that echoes from a wall no one dares to touch. No door, no passage, just stone. And yet, the knocking never stops. Ever wonder what would happen if you lived in a room with no exit? A place built not to punish criminals, but to purify saints? Yeah. You wouldn't last a day. Not without your phone, your snacks, your portal to scrolling despair. These monks, they ask to be locked in. Voluntarily. Quietly. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, what country are you watching from, and what time is it where you are right now? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step slowly through a stone corridor, each footfall tapping like fingers against the memory of a place that once lived and died without ever letting go. The air is cold, unnaturally cold for a summer evening. The walls are thick enough that your footsteps echo like someone else's voice answering from centuries ago. This monastery sits on a hill cloaked in mist most days of the year. No signs, no gift shop. You had to walk here through a wooded trail, overgrown and narrowing, with trees that leaned overhead like they were trying to whisper a warning. You stop in front of the northern wall of the main chapel. Your guide whispers, as if afraid to wake something. This is where the knocking used to come from. No door, no crack, just a wall of time-worn stone, with the occasional smudge from a curious pilgrim's hand. But no one lingers. The story attached to this wall sends most people moving along. A monk disappeared centuries ago. No one saw him leave. No one heard him die. But every night the sound returned. 3 knocks, then silence, repeated exactly 1 hour later. One of the younger monks once confessed he had leaned in to listen during a winter night and heard singing, not chanting, not a hymn, just a soft, humming voice using a language no one had spoken in hundreds of years. You lean closer, pressing your ear to the wall. Nothing, but somehow you can feel something, like someone standing just inches away, on the other side of a surface that shouldn't have a side. You're not the first to feel this, and you won't be the last. In the monastery's archives, a brittle copy of a letter was found, dated 1486, penned by a prior named Henricus de Vale. In it, he wrote, "We have sealed the door." He begged to be left within. No crying, no fear, only his final request. Close the wall behind me and never open it again. And so they did. Masons were brought in. The entry was bricked over, smoothed so carefully that it vanished into the surrounding wall, save for one slightly crooked stone, the one your hand is resting on now. You're not sure why you do it, but you tap your knuckles against the wall. Tap, tap, tap. Nothing happens, but the air suddenly feels heavier. There's a scent, something between incense and cold ash, that creeps into your lungs. And then, so faint you might have imagined it, a response. 3 knocks. You pull back, heart racing. Your guide doesn't speak. He just looks at you and murmurs, "You've begun." They say stone remembers. But here it doesn't just remember, it retells. If someone is still inside, how long have they been there? And more importantly, why was there no door? You don't know it yet, but behind that sealed wall lies a forgotten thread of history, where doorless rooms weren't accidents, but symbols of a faith so absolute, it walled itself away from the world. And tonight you'll follow the path, stone by stone, chamber by chamber, ritual by silence, until you understand not what they believed, but how deeply they were willing to believe it. You keep walking, and your breath slowly sinks with something ancient, something pulsing behind the cold. 3 knocks, 1 unanswered question. You're not leaving anytime soon. Your footsteps soften now, as if the stones beneath your boots are listening. The monastery doesn't echo like other buildings. It absorbs, swallows, as though the walls are tired of hearing the same prayers century after century and have simply decided to keep them. You're not just inside a structure anymore, you're inside memory. Heavy, muffled, breathless memory. Down a narrow passage choked with dust, you find the first clue. An iron-bound book mounted to the wall behind glass. The page on display is faded, its Latin script etched by a steady hand that clearly hadn't laughed in a long time. The title? Regula Silentiae, the rule of silence. And beneath it, a single phrase is underlined in red ink, the old-fashioned kind that looks disturbingly like dried blood. Speech is the first gateway to sin. Remove the gateway. You glance at the corridor around you. Quiet. Not just library quiet, funeral quiet. No birds, no bells, no wind. If the place had a voice, it lost it long ago. The silent orders didn't just avoid small talk. They gave up language altogether. Some didn't speak for weeks, others for decades. One monk reportedly took a vow of silence that lasted 72 years. He died before ever breaking it. And the weird part is, his fellow monks claimed they still heard him chanting in the walls afterward. It wasn't about self-control. It wasn't even about holiness. It was about erasure.
Erasing the ego.
The flesh, the voice, and eventually the world. You reach a long hall lined with small stone doors, cells for the monks. Each door has a narrow slit, just wide enough to pass through a piece of bread or maybe a note, but nothing larger. They weren't meant to exit. They were meant to stay in. One door is slightly ajar. Inside, a room not much larger than a walk-in closet. A cot, a cross, a bowl. That's it. And carved into the stone above the cot is a short sentence in medieval French. This silence is louder than fire. You stare at it, unsure whether it's metaphor or warning. Maybe both. The silent order's believed sound was a distraction, noise, even the kind that came from inside your head. So they trained their minds to stillness. Meditation, yes, but more brutal. They fasted until their ears rang, whipped their backs until pain blurred into clarity. Some stared at walls until the walls stared back. You smile slightly. It's like mindfulness, but on extreme hard mode, like downloading calm and then deleting your tongue. But here's where it gets strange. A note found in one of the cells, dated 1322, reads, "The silence moved. I left my breath in the air, but when I reached for it again, it was gone, replaced with his voice." Whose voice? That's the thing. They didn't say, perhaps because they didn't know, or perhaps because they were afraid to admit it. There's a corridor here known only by its nickname, the Hall of the Last Words. But there are no words carved on the walls, only smooth patches of stone, polished over time by desperate hands. They say a monk was once punished here by being sealed in for speaking out loud. Not blasphemy, not cursing, just speaking. He lasted 8 days. The 9th, they found him curled in the corner, eyes wide, mouth open, no sound, no marks, just gone. Some say he was taken. Others say he was absorbed. And yet, this wasn't a punishment to all. For some, it was the goal. You pause outside a sealed chamber. This one has no slit, no lock, just a wall with a faint outline where a door once was. A brass plate is nailed into the stone beside it, etched in Latin. The mouth closes. The soul listens. You realize with a slow, crawling dread that these monks didn't lose their voices. They gave them away. The silence wasn't absence. It was presence, a deliberate, cultivated emptiness that allowed something else to fill the space. You feel a chill now, not from the cold, but from the awareness that maybe, just maybe, they were right. That maybe the room without a door wasn't to keep others out, but to keep something in. You turn away slowly, only to hear it again. Tap, tap, tap. No footsteps, no shadows, just the sound. From behind that polished, mouthless wall. You take a breath, and without knowing why, you stop yourself from exhaling. Like even your breath might be too loud here. And for a second, you wonder, what would it feel like to never speak again? You take the long way back through the corridor, as if instinctively avoiding whatever just knocked. The air is still, but your ears are straining, listening for something you can't name. Not footsteps, not voices, just the absence of both. Eventually, you reach a chamber that looks forgotten, even by this monastery's standards. Dust clings to the walls like skin, and the only source of light is a broken slit in the ceiling, casting a faint column of sunlight across the floor. It lands on a door, short, thick, iron riveted, but bolted from the inside, which is strange, because you're standing on the outside. The latch, rusted and unmoving, is clearly shut. The handle, bent and misshapen, shows signs of force, as if someone inside tried to keep something out and failed. You reach out and touch the wood. It's cold. Not cold like shade or stone. Cold like fear. Like whatever memories this door holds have soaked into the grain, refusing to leave. You bend down and see it. A small inscription, hidden beneath centuries of grime. It's barely legible, but you make it out. I sealed myself in. Do not unseal me. No signature, no date, no explanation. Just that chilling plea, written by a hand that knew it wouldn't write again. The records call him Brother Alexei. He arrived in 1601, young and quiet, but strangely urgent, like he was trying to outrun something. He spoke little, ate less, and within a week of entering the monastery, he made a request that shocked even the old prior, to be locked inside his own chamber with the key thrown away. At first, they refused. Even among ascetics, there were limits, but he insisted, cried even, not from fear, but from certainty. If I am free, he said, I will return to who I was. Eventually, they relented. He chose the smallest cell, the one you're standing in front of now. And on the day of his sealing, he did something no monk had ever done. He took the key from the prior's hand and locked the door himself. From within, the brothers waited in the hall for an hour, in silence, out of respect. Then they heard him move. Once, a dragging sound, then nothing. For 20 years, there were no sounds, no prayers, no coughs, not even breathing. They assumed he had died, a holy death, but no one dared open the door. It was his vow, until the day it rattled. Just once, it shook the whole hall. Dust fell from the ceiling, candles blew out, and then the noise stopped. The prior at the time, an old man nearing blindness, pressed his ear to the wood and whispered Brother Alexei's name. What he heard chilled him more than any scream ever could. He heard breathing, but it wasn't human. Centuries later, when restoration began, a young stoneworker was sent to clean the area. He ignored the warnings, removed the rusted bolts, pried open the door, and inside, nothing. No skeleton, no fabric, not even dust, just a mark on the wall, a perfect handprint, scorched into the stone as if burned there from the inside. The fingers were long, too long, the palm narrow and curled inward, as if pressing against the rock in pain or hunger. The restoration worker left that day and never returned. He told no one what he saw, except one old archivist, who scribbled it down before dying in his sleep. You shine your flashlight into the chamber, but it barely cuts the dark. The shadows in here don't behave. They lean forward. They flicker toward you, not away. And in the silence, you almost hear something like breath. Close, uneven, ragged. But when you look again, the cell is empty. Or it looks empty. You back away and close the small opening, not sure whether you're protecting yourself or the monastery. Brother Alexei wasn't the only one who asked to be sealed in. There are 6 others recorded across Europe. Monks, nuns, even one abbot who volunteered to be locked inside cells with no exit, no windows, no contact. Some believed it was a path to holiness, others penance, and a few were hiding. From what? No one agrees. Some say they were possessed and sought exile instead of exorcism. Others think they encountered something during their meditations, something ancient and speaking in silence. Historians still debate whether these records are accurate or embellished, but the physical evidence, sealed doors, notes, and burn marks, does exist. And you've seen one of them now. And once you've seen it, it stays with you. You feel that invisible pressure again, behind your ear, like a whisper forming before sound. You turn. No one there. Just the corridor. Just the dust. Just the silence. And behind the locked cell, 3 soft knocks. There's no rush to leave the corridor now. You walk slowly, but not by choice. Your legs feel heavier than they should, as if the air thickened, or the stones themselves don't want you to go. When you reach the main hallway, a monk glides past you in the distance. You're sure you didn't hear footsteps. His robe is torn at the hem, trailing over the ground like smoke, and his head is bowed so low you wonder how he sees. You call out. No response. He doesn't even flinch. Just vanishes around the corner where the cloister bends toward the oldest part of the structure. The part sealed off for repairs. The part with no reason to be visited, unless you're looking for the wall of flesh and soul. You first heard the name whispered by a novice during evening prayers, quickly silenced by a glare from the prior. It sounded like metaphor, poetic, or even devotional. But the name appears in the monastery's hidden register, kept in a cabinet that doesn't lock, because no one dares open it. The entry is short, a single line, constructed by hands that bled faith, buried in mortar that still pulses beneath the stone. You follow the monk's trail, not out of courage, out of compulsion. The hallway narrows until your shoulders almost graze the walls. A strange warmth radiates through the stone, damp and alive. You find the passage at the end, hidden behind a rotted tapestry, one you've never seen, though you've passed this way before. It depicts Saint Bartholomew flayed alive, but smiling. And behind him, a wall. It looks identical to the one now in front of you. But something's off. This wall isn't part of the original construction. It bulges slightly, as if something inside is pressing out. The stones are too smooth, too rounded, almost organic. You reach out and place your hand flat against it, and you flinch. It's warm, and it moves. Not visibly, not at first, but when you press harder, you feel a subtle pulse. Slow, rhythmic, like the wall has a heartbeat. You pull away, but your palm is red. Not blood, a red powder, ancient and metallic smelling, clings to your skin like iron dust. You wipe it off on your robe, but the sensation lingers. Tingling, itchy, curious. You step back and examine the structure. A single candle flickers in a bracket beside it, though there's no wax and no wick, just light, cold light, bluish and dry. Then something catches your eye. An outline in the mortar, faint but unmistakable. A door-shaped frame, sealed without seams. There's no handle, no hinges, just a patch of wall that looks too deliberate. Etched above the frame, in a language you don't recognize, are 3 symbols. Each looks like a figure bowing, but the last one, it's bent backwards, mouth open, hollow eyes, as if screaming into the wall. You put your ear to the stone. First, nothing, then a sound. It isn't words. It isn't even voice. It's skin brushing against the other side. There's a legend, lost to most, that some monks believed the wall between the sacred and the profane was not symbolic, but real. And they tried to build it, piece by piece, bone by bone, mind by mind. They laid bricks infused with their own hair, mixed their blood into the mortar, and sealed themselves in layers between this world and the next. This wall is what remained. Cathedral of sacrifice, a barrier of madness, a womb holding whatever they feared they had summoned and failed to send back. You lean away from the stone, but part of you, deep, sick, enthralled, wants to stay, wants to listen again, wants to press your body against it and feel the warmth of something no longer entirely human. You blink. There's a shadow behind you. You turn. Nothing. Only your own silhouette. But it's smiling. And you're not. Some say that if you sleep near the wall of flesh and soul, you'll dream of being bricked inside. And when you wake, your mouth will be filled with mortar. Others believe the wall isn't a wall at all. It's a door, and it opens inward, but only when you're finally still. Still enough for the monastery to decide. You're ready to be part of it. You make it back to your cell eventually, or at least to a room that pretends to be it. Everything looks the same. Your wooden cot, the prayer stool beneath the slit of moonlight, the scratchy wool blanket you swore you'd replace, though of course you never did. But something is off. The mattress is warmer than it should be. Not like someone just left. It's the wrong kind of warmth. This heat rises from below. It breathes. You sit for a while, facing the narrow wooden door, watching it, the iron latch, the uneven gap where it doesn't quite close all the way. You never liked sleeping with it open, but these days you're more afraid of it shutting. It's harder now to remember why you came here. The reason feels soft, half-rotted, like fruit left too long in a bowl. Was it for penance? For clarity? For escape? Doesn't matter. You're here now, and the room knows it. They tell the novices that the monastery breathes. A quaint metaphor, stone as lungs, silence as pulse. It's meant to teach them rhythm. But you've started to wonder if the metaphor had teeth, because this room isn't quite where you left it. The first time you noticed, it was the window. It had moved, just by a finger's width, a little to the left, enough that the moonlight no longer reached the floor the same way. You tried convincing yourself it was your imagination. Shadows play tricks, after all. Monks live in shadow. You're trained to distrust your senses. But the next morning, the stool had vanished, replaced by a larger one. Same design, different height. The wood grain had more knots. You didn't ask anyone. Who would believe you? On the third night, the ceiling sagged. Not visibly, just audibly. You could hear it during Compline, like ropes tightening above you. When you looked up, you saw nothing. But you felt it, as if the room had inhaled and hadn't yet exhaled. You begin sleeping in shifts, 1 hour at a time. You lie flat on your back, hands folded like the dead, and you stare at the door. That's the rule. Face the door, because if you wake up facing the wall, the room has moved. And when the room moves, it takes something with it. Last week, Brother Geron disappeared. A soft-spoken man with chapped lips and a tendency to hum during chores. gone. No one speaks of it. No bell was rung. No name added to the necrology. But you remember what he told you 2 days before. It's always closer in the morning, he whispered. The back wall. I measured it. Every night before sleep. It's moving. It wants to touch me. You asked him what he meant. He only smiled. I sleep facing the door now, but sometimes I wake up and the door's behind me. You try marking the stones. A little chalk cross in the corner. But it smears every night, even when you don't touch it. You hang a string from the ceiling to judge movement. It swings in a full circle, slowly, like a pendulum drunk on bad dreams. One night, you lay a bit of bread in the center of the room, just to see. You wake, the bread is gone. In its place, a stone. Not a monastery stone. Something volcanic. Smooth, hot, whispering if you press it to your ear. One night, you finally sleep. Deep, gone. When you wake, you feel the wall against your cheek. Not the cold stone wall, but the soft one. The one that wasn't there before. It's breathing. Your bed is gone. The window is gone. There's no ceiling. Just silence. You twist. You crawl. And you find the door. You throw it open. You're in a corridor. Not your corridor. This one has no corners. Only endless stone. You've woken up inside a different cell. And it smells like someone else's fear. The monks have a name for it. They call it transcendence camera, the passing of the room. It's said that the monastery contains 118 rooms, but 119 doors. And sometimes, when the monastery is restless, one door leads not where it should, but where someone has just been lost. A recycled cell, re-inhabited, a spiritual game of musical chairs, only with fewer chairs, and more screaming. When you return to the cloister for morning prayers, the prior makes eye contact with you, for the first time in weeks, and he asks, "Did your room feel smaller today?" You nod. He only sighs. "Then I suggest you pray harder." The room listens, It rewards faith, and it punishes wandering thoughts. You ask what happens if you run. He raises an eyebrow. Run where? And for the first time, you truly realize there are no doors leading out, only doors leading in. He sits at the edge of the refectory, always the last to enter, always the first to rise. Never a sound, never a word, not even when spoken to directly. You asked Brother Elias once, during a moment of boldness between matins and lauds, "Who is he?" Elias blinked at you. "Who?" "The silent one, wears the heavy hood, never eats, never sings, always sits with his hands hidden." Elias only gave you a slow, tired look. "We all have days when we don't speak, brother, but I've never heard him speak at all." Then perhaps you haven't been listening closely enough. You try to catch his eyes during Vespers, but he doesn't lift his hood. You notice something odd. The way dust avoids him, the way candlelight dims near him. He doesn't cast a shadow. Or maybe his shadow is the only part of him that moves. His cowl is stitched from thicker wool than yours. Old cloth. Monastic, but not of this order. The hem bears a faded seal, not the one of Saint Benedict. Something older. A symbol you can't place, though it makes the hairs on your neck rise. During scriptoria hours, he copies nothing. No ink stains his fingers. His parchment remains blank. Yet every evening, a new scroll appears in the archive. No one sees him deliver it, but it's always written in his hand, if that's what it is. Slanted script, thorn-like letters, not Latin, not Greek, just meaning. You tried to read one once. You couldn't remember your own name for 3 days. One night you follow him. You break your vow of silence to fake a cough and step away early after Compline. You keep to the shadows. He moves without footsteps. Bare stone greets your feet with its usual chill, but you hear nothing from his. Not even the swish of robes. He doesn't go to his cell. He walks deeper, to the old cloister, the part that's always damp, where the stones sweat, where the foundation bends with age and secrets. He stops at a small, sealed door. You've never seen it open. He passes through it without touching it. You remain outside, breathing shallow, heart frantic, and then he returns. You freeze. His hood turns slightly, just slightly, and in your head you hear it. You shouldn't be here. It wasn't a voice. Not really. Not sound, but impression. A pressure inside your skull. A thought not born from your mind. He doesn't touch you. He doesn't speak again. He just walks past. And with him, the torchlight flickers cold. Later, you confide in the abbot. He doesn't look up from his candle. We don't question every brother's silence, he says. Some carry vows deeper than words. But he doesn't sleep. He doesn't eat. The abbot interrupts. And yet he serves. His presence calms the stones. The dreams are quieter when he is near. Have you noticed? You want to say no, but you have. Nights after seeing him, your sleep is dreamless. Still, peaceful. But that somehow is worse, because the dreams were the only part of you left. Then comes the night you wake with something in your hands. A rolled parchment. Not yours. No ink, no markings. Just faint indentations. Pressed into the page like claws through damp paper. You tilt it toward the window's sliver of moonlight. Only one phrase shows itself, glimmering faintly like breath on a mirror. He was the first, and underneath, he will be the last. You burn the parchment. It doesn't burn. You try to tear it. It bleeds. Not red, not black, just memory. Your earliest one. Your mother's face. The parchment eats it. The next morning, he isn't at prayers. No one notices. But later, inside your own cell, you find a folded robe on your cot. Thicker wool, old seams, and at the hem, his seal. Your name, gone from the monastery rolls. A blank line in the records. The ink hovers, refusing to write you. You try to say something, anything, but your tongue won't move. Not anymore. It's not even hidden. No rug covers it. No table rests atop it. No attempt has been made to disguise its presence. In the middle of the chapter house, where monks gather to read the rule and confess their faults, a door has grown from the stone. Square, iron-banded, with too dark to name. No hinges, just a single iron ring sunk into its center. You try not to look at it, but you can feel it looking back. There's no talk of it, no acknowledgement. The abbot reads aloud from the rule of Saint Benedict as if the geometry of the floor has not been violated. No one gestures toward the door, not even with their eyes, but you see them glance. Fleeting, guilty, terrified. That night you dream of it. You are in the chapter house, alone. The door creaks open. From it rises not smoke, not shadow, but a smell. Old vellum, wet straw, candle wax long melted, and another scent. Your childhood bedroom after a nightmare. You descend. Of course you do. The stairs spiral down, not in stone but in bone. Tibia balusters, vertebrae as risers. And with every step you forget something important. Your mother's lullaby, the name of the saint you used to pray to, how many days there are in a week. And then you reach the bottom. You wake up screaming, but no sound comes out. Your throat works, your lungs strain, but your voice refuses to join you. Later, at breakfast, the brother across from you mouths something. Not speaks, mouths. Slow. Deliberate. You squint. Don't answer it. You look down at your bowl of thin oats, steam curling like spirits. When you glance back up, the brother is gone. His place empty. His name? Already evaporated. After sex, you return to the chapter house. The door is still there. You approach it. It does not open, but the ring is warm to the touch, as if recently held. You kneel, not to pray, just to feel close to the ground, to listen. You place your ear against the door, and you hear it. Not voices, not breathing, scratching, something beneath. No rhythm, no pacing, just insistence, like nails across parchment, or claws in a dream you almost remembered. You jerk back, heart thudding. The prior stands behind you. You hadn't heard him arrive. Curious, he says, not unkindly, that it shows itself to you so soon. What is it? You ask finally. The prior's face softens with the weight of memory. A test, a mercy, prison, a key. He walks away. That night, he doesn't attend Compline. The next morning, you find the door slightly ajar. The prior is gone. His cell, empty. His robe, folded neatly. Atop it, a candle burnt down to waxless wick. And beneath that, a small slip of parchment. On it, only 4 words. He opened it willingly. The monks pretend nothing has changed, but the bells sound different, tuned lower, dragging longer, as if struck underwater. You listen closely during lauds. You hear something else under the chants. A second harmony, just a half note off. An echo that doesn't match. A voice not from the choir, but beneath it, and it's humming your name. You spend your next free hour with Brother Petrus in the archives. He doesn't speak unless spoken to, and even then only in Latin. You whisper, "Porta sub terra?" He frowns, then nods. He disappears into the back shelves and returns with a small book. No title on the spine, bound in some rough, translucent leather. You hesitate, then open it. Inside, only one illustration. A monastery floor with a door, identical to yours. Except in this drawing, the door is open, and from it a hand reaches out. Long, thin, fingers like dry roots, and in the hand, a candle, melted all the way down. This flame is shaped like an eye. That night, you dream again. You stand before the door. You don't open it, but you kneel again. This time, something kneels with you on the other side. You feel its weight mirrored beneath the stone. Your hand rises, not of your own will. You place your palm to the wood, and it presses back. The next morning, the door is gone. Not locked, not broken, just gone. The floor is smooth again, seamless, as if nothing had ever disturbed it. You turn to leave, but feel something in your robes. You reach into the folds and pull out a candle stub, still warm. They wake you before dawn, not with their usual rhythm, not with the familiar rising peal that signals matins, but something far stranger, as though time itself had reversed in the bell tower, and now the notes retreat instead of call. The chime rises, then falls, but not as sound, as memory. You sit up in the dark, heartbeat in your ears, trying to understand what you're hearing. Each toll seems to draw something from you, not fear, not panic, but context, like forgetting what day it is while knowing something important is happening. You feel like you've woken up late for a life you no longer remember. The other monks stir, but none speak. In the cloister walk, the bell continues, slower now, each note unwinding as if it were untying the monastery itself. By the time you reach the church, it stopped. The abbot stands alone beneath the tower, his hands clasped, eyes closed, whispering something you can't quite hear. Then he turns to you, his gaze focused, voice low. It's begun again, then. You open your mouth to ask, but he raises a hand. Do not say your name aloud today. You blink. Why? Because the bells are still listening. That evening, you find Brother Gregor sitting at the foot of the bell tower, his face pale, his eyes fixed on the ground. You sit beside him. He doesn't acknowledge you, not at first. Then, they used to only ring backward when someone had died, he whispers. But no one's died. Are you sure? He looks up sharply. You weren't sure why you said it. The words just came. He swallows. Last time this happened, it was the prior. Dinner, no one speaks. The bells do not ring to call the meal. Instead, each monk enters the refectory at random, as if pulled by invisible string. They eat without prayer. They leave without thanks. The meat is undercooked. The wine tastes like vinegar. The bread crumbles like ash in your hands. Only the candle at your table burns steady. You catch it flickering sideways toward the door, toward the bell tower. That night, in your cell, you wake again. Not from a dream, but from a sensation that your heartbeat is no longer yours. It pulses with the rhythm of the bell. You press your palm to your chest and feel it one beat behind, a second body inside your own, pacing you like a shadow just half a step out of sync. You sneak to the bell tower. You shouldn't, but you have to know. The spiral stairs feel colder than stone. As you ascend, you notice something strange. There are no windows, and each step feels like it takes longer than the last. When you reach the top, the bell is still, and someone is standing beside it. Not a monk, a figure robed in rough cloth, face turned away, hand resting on the rope. You whisper, "Who are you?" The figure turns, but has no face, only a surface like worn iron, etched with tiny scratches in perfect circles, like a labyrinth. From within the figure's robe, a sound begins. Ding, 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 but in reverse. And as it sounds, your memories begin to pull away. You forget your family name. You forget the road you took to come to the monastery. You forget why you climbed the tower at all, until the bell stops, and the figure is gone. But beside the rope, left hanging by a splinter of iron, is a parchment, scrawled in dark brown ink. The bell tolls not to call, but to remember who is already gone. When you descend, you feel heavier. Your robe feels tighter. The wind outside no longer smells like forest. It smells like candle smoke and open graves. You see Brother Gregor at the door. He speaks in a voice that is no longer frightened. "You heard it, didn't you?" You nod. He says only, "Then you'll hear it again." And sure enough, the next night the bells ring. But this time, they say your name, backwards. You find it under your pillow. Not a dream, not a metaphor, an actual scroll, tightly wound, coarse to the touch, bound in what looks like strands of hair. You don't scream. You don't even gasp. Because in this monastery, things don't appear by accident. And when they do, you learn not to question too loudly. The strands aren't yours. Too dark, too long. They smell faintly of rosemary and something else, something sour, like sweat from a dying man. You set the scroll on your desk, light your candle, and hesitate. You've seen scrolls before, Latin psalms, Benedictine decrees, weathered lists of names, sometimes in ink that's turned red with age. But this one hums. Not literally, though wouldn't that be nice? But in a way you feel like the air around it is holding its breath. When you finally open it, you expect Latin, or maybe Greek, some old monkish incantation. What you see are pictures, crude drawings scratched in charcoal, 6 frames, sequential, like the comic strips children might scribble in the margins of a psalter when they're not yet old enough to be bored properly. Frame 1. A man walking into a room with no door. Frame 2. The man kneeling before a table with a bowl. Frame 3. He cuts his own hair and places it in the bowl. Frame 4. He lights the hair on fire. Frame 5. Smoke rises and takes the shape of a woman's face. Frame 6. The man is gone. Only the bowl remains. There are no words, only a wax seal in the corner. You press your thumb to it. You don't know why. It sticks, and you hear whispering. You turn, but your cell is empty, except for the bowl. Yes, the one from the scroll. You didn't put it there. You don't remember anyone entering your cell, but the bowl is warm, and there are strands of hair in it. Not dark ones this time, but yours. There is a pounding at your door. You open it to find Brother Tomas, the youngest monk, barely more than a boy. He looks like he's seen a demon, and maybe he has. Did it give you a scroll? You nod slowly. He breathes out in relief, then fear. Good. That means it hasn't chosen you yet. Then he runs. Just like that. No explanation. No further warning. And somehow, that terrifies you more than if he'd said anything else. You carry the bowl to the library. The librarian, Brother Adelmus, doesn't look up from his ink pot. You ask him, "What do the scrolls mean?" He replies without blinking, "They are requests. Some are granted. Some are obeyed. Some are avoided." You lift the bowl slightly. "This was in my cell." He finally looks up. "Then you should bury it, before it asks you to burn it." You laugh nervously. "It's just a bowl." He leans in closer, his ink-stained fingers twitching. "So was the Grail, brother. So was the basin Pilate used. You try to sleep that night, but the bowl won't leave. It moves. Not far, not fast, just closer. Each time you close your eyes, you hear it scrape softly across the wooden floor. You throw it into the well. You watch it sink. The water closes over it like the earth over a coffin. But the next morning, it's back on your desk, filled with more hair. Yours, and someone else's. Long, coarse, silvered at the tips, and tied in a tiny knot, exactly like the scroll. You finally do what you're afraid to do. You burn it. You whisper a psalm, not for protection, but for permission, as if begging God to look away for just a second. The flame takes instantly. The hair smells like incense, only twisted, like incense in a room where something unholy was worshipped just before you arrived. The smoke rises, forms, a face, not a woman's, yours, but older, eyes hollowed, cheeks sunken, and no tongue in the mouth. The face does not move. It only looks at you, and then at your bed. Then it vanishes. The next day, someone new sleeps in your cell. You've been moved. No one says why, but on your new desk is another scroll. This one tied with a red ribbon. No hair, just a single word scrawled in Latin across the seal. Vocatus, summoned. In the refectory that evening, Brother Tomas avoids your gaze. Brother Adelmus won't speak, and the abbot passes by you and says only, "Don't read it yet, not until after the door is sealed." Wait, what door? There is no door. And yet, somewhere deep below the cloister, you hear the unmistakable sound of a hinge slamming shut. But there was nothing to close. Was there? You find the script on the inside of your sleeve. Not parchment, not cloth stitched in, actual ink, written directly on your skin. At first you think it's a rash, or dirt, or maybe your mind playing tricks again. the way it did last month when you swore you saw a second moon over the cloister garden. But then you see the lines. Cursive, deliberate, almost delicate. A hand that wasn't yours. You roll up your sleeve. More words, curved in spirals. Around your elbow, down toward your wrist. And they haven't stopped forming. Fresh black ink pushes to the surface of your skin like blood through a reopened wound. But there is no pain, only warmth, like something whispering through your bloodstream. You try to wipe it off. The cloth comes away stained, but the words remain, and they keep coming. You rush to the scriptorium. Brother Wilhelm, the calligrapher with the missing eye, glances at your arm and goes pale. No one's written in that hand since the 40-day silence. You ask him what that means, but he only points to the corner of the room. There, hung in a crooked frame, a single page encased in glass. It bears the same script now bleeding from your arm. The abbot arrives before you can speak further. His face is as unreadable as always. You didn't read the scroll, did you? You shake your head. No, of course not. You hadn't even opened the ribbon. You left it exactly where it was, beneath the candle in your new cell. The abbot sighs in a way that sounds too much like a prayer. It doesn't matter. Once it names you, the writing begins. That night, you sit at your desk, a knife beside your arm, not to harm yourself, just in case the ink starts forming names. Your name, or someone else's, but it doesn't. Instead, the script seems to move, not only to form new words, but to rearrange itself, rephrasing your thoughts, correcting your memories, replacing them with cleaner ones. You don't remember what your mother's voice sounded like anymore, but you do remember the name of a monk who lived here in 1287, a monk who also received the ink. The script begins to speak aloud, not with voice, but with presence. Each word you've read before, somewhere. Each phrase echoed in the margins of old psalters, in the half-remembered chants at matins, in the lines carved into the doorless room beneath the monastery. Yes, the room with no door. You ask the ink who wrote it, and the ink answers by writing more. I am written by those who cannot speak. I speak for those who were never allowed to write. I am remembrance. I am retribution. You try to hide your arm beneath your robe, but the ink burns cold now, icy, recoiling from your shame. You light incense, not to sanctify, but to confuse it. Still, it writes. Even in your sleep, your arm pulses with fresh lines, wet and glistening like new paint on a fresco. You wake to find your bedsheets smeared with scripture, not from your dreams, but from your body. By the third day, the ink has reached your chest, over your heart. These words are smaller now, more crowded, like they're running out of room, like they're trying to finish something before the space is gone. You ask Brother Adelmus, quietly during prayers, if it will stop. He says, only if you confess. You nod. Confess what? He pauses. That's the trouble. You may not know what you did yet. At midnight, you sneak to the library. You take the glass-encased page off the wall. Behind it, carved into the stone with the same script, you find a name. Your name, but not in Latin, in a language you've never learned. Yet somehow you know what it says. You promised. You forgot. Back in your cell, you unwrap the red ribbon. The scroll is blank, until your blood drips on it, from your arm now raw where the ink refused to stop. And just like that, the page drinks the blood and begins to write, not in ink, but in memory. Your memory. It writes the image of a boy in a monastery, alone, hungry, praying to be seen, praying to belong, and a voice, ancient and warm, promising that he would be remembered. If only he offered something in return. What was it? You can't remember, but the ink can. and it's writing faster now. There is a knock at your door, but there is no door, only stone, and the sound of knuckles striking it. Then a whisper, "Open the memory, let the truth in." The ink blazes. You fall to your knees, and in that moment you understand. You didn't find the ink, found you, and it's not done. You hear it before you see it. A deep metallic presence, not a sound exactly, more like a vibration inside your chest, like thunder echoing behind stone. But there is no bell tower in this part of the monastery, and no bells are ever rung after Compline. Still it tolls, faint but steady, and something in you knows it's not a call to prayer. It's a call for you. You follow the resonance, down past the cloister, past the row of saints with crumbling noses and fingertips worn smooth from centuries of anonymous reverence, past the sacristy where Brother Gervas once caught fire lighting the Advent wreath and claimed he saw an angel in the flames, into the undercroft, where no one walks at night, where the cold feels older than the walls. You press your ear to the stones, and there it is again. Boom! But this time closer. You find the bell hanging not in a tower, but suspended in a stone alcove. No ropes, no wheel, no sign it was ever meant to be rung. And strangest of all, no clapper, nothing inside to make the sound, nothing that should let it ring, yet you feel it inside your bones. The bell is blackened bronze, almost green with age. Inscriptions spiral its rim, worn, unreadable, like a forgotten language spoken only by echoes. You reach out, feels warm, alive, and though you never touch it directly, it responds to your presence. A shimmer, a ripple in the air around it. Then, boom, no louder than before, but this time you see something shift. Behind you, just for a moment, a figure, pale, robed, watching. You spin around, no one there, but on the ground, dust stirred in the shape of footprints, and where the figure stood, a parchment rests, half buried beneath loose stone. You unroll it, more of the same script, the one from your arm, but this time it doesn't write itself. It waits, a space left open, a silence asking to be filled, a confession. You write one word, not a name, not yet, just forgive. The bell tolls again, and this time it cracks. A fine line splits the bronze down the center. From the fracture, a voice emerges, but not aloud, inside your thoughts. Not until the truth is spoken. You rush back to the library, the scroll tight in your grip. You pull down old books, chronicles, obituaries, punishment logs. You look for your name, or for something that matches the ink. Instead, you find a letter, untitled, unsealed, hidden between the pages of a book on monastic architecture. It's not addressed to anyone, but it's written in your handwriting. You don't remember writing it, but you know every word. It speaks of a boy made to stand in the rain for 3 days, of silence forced upon him, of a vow taken not for God but for survival. It speaks of a bell rung not to call the faithful, but to cover screams. You drop the letter, your ears ring, not from the bell, from memory, and then, in the quiet after, you hear the whisper again. Truth makes the silence holy. You return to the alcove. The bell is gone. In its place, a stone door, or more precisely, where a door should be, for there is still no handle, no hinges, no opening, just the shape of a door drawn with faint ash, and carved into it, ring no bell that hides the wound. You press your hand to it, and the bell tolls one last time, but this time it comes from within you. The bell with no clapper has left its sound inside your chest. and now you carry it. Each beat of your heart is a warning, a memory, a truth not yet spoken aloud. You return to your cell, and the ink has begun again, this time on your neck. Not words, a symbol, a bell cracked, open, like a mouth trying to speak. But still, no sound, not yet. You're sure now, something is watching. It's not in the hallway, not out in the cloister where moonlight carves shadows against the arches, not even behind the cracked bell alcove, where voices echo with memories. It's closer, in your own cell, inside your habits, inside your skin. You haven't slept in days, or has it been longer? You try to count, but every time you reach the second day, time folds like parchment. You blink and it's night. You blink again and it's still night. Time here is not broken. It's simply been rewritten. And the author, he does not sleep. They call him Brother Adelhard, or at least they did once, before his name was scratched from the roll, before his belongings were buried in the garden, before his cell was sealed with wax and prayer. A monk who refused sleep, not out of discipline, but fear. They say he began his vigils like any other brother voluntarily. Extra prayers, midnight fasts, little acts of penance. But then came the whispers, first from behind the altar, then in his bowl of broth, then from inside his own breath. The others heard them too, but only when they stood near him, like the air around him had grown porous. Then he stopped blinking, stopped eating. His skin grew paper dry, his eyes glassy and sunken, yet he moved with purpose, not mad, not sick. He walked the halls at night with a candle no wind could extinguish. He touched nothing, spoke to no one. He only watched. He watched the others sleep, and sometimes when they woke, they found fresh scratches on the walls, words no one remembered writing, languages no one studied. Once, a monk awoke to find a Latin sentence etched above his cot. Somnus est ostium ad culpam. Sleep is the door to guilt. They say Adelhard stopped sleeping because he feared what dreams might show him, that he had seen something in the refectory perhaps, or in the scriptorium when the lamps burned too low, something that followed him from dream to waking, and he decided, if it could not be dreamed, it could not be real. So he never dreamed again. The others begged him to rest. They tried sedatives, herbs, honeyed milk, prayers of calm. Nothing worked. Even when drugged, his body remained upright, alert. So they tried the old rites. Not an exorcism, not exactly, but a vigil over him. They read from the Psalms all night, took turns whispering blessings near his bed, and finally he closed his eyes for 3 seconds, and in those 3 seconds, 5 brothers screamed awake, not from sound, from visions, visions they couldn't agree on except for one detail. Each of them said he was holding a candle, and behind him, in the dark, stood something with no face, but dozens of open mouths. The next night, Adelhard was gone. No footprints, no open doors. His candle was still burning, untouched, but his robe was folded neatly beside the chapel font. Dry, cold, but breathing. They sealed his cell the next morning, and beneath the wax, they wrote one word, insomnium, not insomnia the condition, but insomnium a title, a role. The absence of dreaming made flesh. You found his cell. It's far beneath the kitchen, past a tunnel of limestone and mold where the air smells like wet books and wet teeth. The wax is gone. The door swings open before you touch it. Inside, a single candle burns, and behind it, a figure, thin, still, skin like brittle cloth stretched over glass, eyes open, staring at you. No, not at you, into you. You step forward, but your legs feel numb. Each step you take feels like walking into sleep. But you're not tired. You're remembering what tired felt like. You're not dreaming. You're remembering what dreaming used to be. The room folds. The flame flickers. And suddenly, you're no longer standing. You're floating. Not up. Not down. Sideways. Into a place behind your eyelids. But your eyes are still open. Adele Hard speaks without moving. You are not the first. His voice is your voice. Or rather, the one you use in dreams. You've seen it too. Haven't you? You don't answer. Because you don't need to. He already knows. Then, gently, don't sleep here. And then, he closes his eyes. Not like a man falling asleep. Like a candle being snuffed. And you wake up, in your bed, the candle gone, the robe folded beside you, and on the wall above your head, scratched in fresh ink, it dreams us. You lie there motionless, listening, not to footsteps, not to bells, but to the sound of your own heartbeat. And for just a moment, it stutters, like it too is afraid of falling asleep. You've started watching time differently now, not by the bells, not by the sun that filters dimly through the high, grimy windows, not even by the rhythm of meals and prayers, but by the shadows, the way they fall too long in the morning, too short at dusk, and sometimes not at all. It began with the bell tower. You were passing through the north transept when you heard it. A soft, ticking, mechanical, deliberate, coming from inside the stone. The monastery isn't supposed to have a mechanical clock. That's a new invention, decades off, maybe centuries. But the ticking continues, measured, precise, mocking. It draws you toward the belfry, a spiral staircase choked with dust and spider thread, wooden steps that creak in Morse code. Up there, the air changes. It's thinner, brittle, full of rust and pigeon bones. But it's not birds that roost here anymore. You find it mounted to the wall, half swallowed by ivy and soot. A brass timepiece. No maker's mark. No glass. No winding key. The hands are long and elegant, bent slightly at the tips. And they're moving, but not forward. They are circling backward. First, you think it's broken, but then you test it. You spend the next day, or what should be the next day, marking time. You sit in your cell and trace the shadows on the stone floor. You count the chimes of the bell tower. You draw a line for every hour on your parchment. And when you return to the brass clock that evening, it's earlier, by 3 hours. You ask Brother Cadmar, the oldest of the monks, whether the monastery ever had a working horologe. He stares at you a long time before answering. Not anymore, he says. It told the wrong kind of time. You press him. He tells you that long ago, the monastery tried to build a mechanical clock as an experiment, to sanctify the hours without needing sleep. The idea was simple. If they could track time perfectly, the monks could pray perfectly. Never missing a vigil, never oversleeping, never needing to guess the hour by the sun or the weather. But the clock did something strange. The longer it ticked, the more confused the monks became. They would rise for matins and find it was already terse. They would eat breakfast twice and dinner never. One monk aged 4 years in a week. Another died before he was born. Eventually, they sealed the mechanism in the tower, tried to forget it. But time doesn't forget. Time resents forgetting. You return to the belfry that night, candle in hand. The hands on the clock now spin faster. Not a slow drift, but a determined backward whirl. And as you watch, something happens. The light around the clock distorts. The air gets heavier, then impossibly light. You blink, and you're back. back in the hallway before you ever climbed the steps, back with your candle freshly lit, back with the wax still warm in your fingers. The clock has undone your ascent. You test it again, and again, and again. Each time, the rewind gets longer. Once, it sends you back an entire day. You find Brother Aldrich still alive, though he had died that morning. You speak to him. He doesn't know what's coming. You do. But when you try to warn him, your voice becomes crows. Dozens of crows, pouring from your mouth, wings soaked in ink. He laughs and walks away. The clock is more than broken. It's hungry. It feeds on causality, devours sequence. And each time you touch it, you surrender a little more of yourself. Your memories blur. Your footsteps echo before you take them. Once, you taste a memory of bread before you even think of eating. Time isn't passing in the monastery anymore. It's folding. Eventually, you confront the abbot. You demand to know why no one has destroyed it. He just looks at you, tired and far away, and says, "Because it's not ours. It was here before us. It will be here after. We don't track the hours. We are trapped in them." Later that night, you return to your cell. You find a note on your cot, written in your own hand. You have no memory of writing it. You've already done this. Don't do it again. And beneath it, scribbled in fine, precise lettering, in a script that matches the brass etchings on the clock itself, chronophage, the time eater. You wake up to a room that's smaller than it was before. Not a feeling, not a trick of the eye. The ceiling is closer. The stone wall across from your cot has inched forward by the length of your hand. You press your palms to the wall. It's cold, like it hasn't been touched in centuries. There's no seam, no mortar line out of place. It's as though the wall has always been here. But you remember. You remember a shelf that used to hang where the stone now stands. A pile of folded robes. A wooden box with the abbot's seal. You remember reaching for them. And now they're part of the wall, as if memory had been mortared over. At breakfast, you mention it to Brother Marius. He drops his spoon mid-slurp and mutters, "It's choosing you now." When you press him, he shakes his head and returns to his porridge, his hands trembling. You ask Brother Auden next, the one who hardly ever speaks. He lifts his hood, and you see that one of his eyes has been replaced with something else. Not an injury, not a wound, just gone. In its place, a smooth patch of pale stone, the same kind as the wall. He sees your stare and smiles faintly. "It starts in the cell," he says. "Then it spreads, like moss, but slower. Best to lie still and not resist." The stone hates struggle. That night, you lie awake and watch the wall. You don't sleep, not because of fear, but because of curiosity. And sure enough, just before the hour of matins, it moves again. A soundless shift, a quiet reordering of the world. It's only a few inches, but it's unmistakable. The cot creaks against it. The candlelight bends oddly, like light underwater. You see your shadow ripple and twitch. You hold your breath, and for one terrifying moment, you hear breathing, but not your own. In the morning, the doorway to the corridor is narrower, by a finger's width. No one else seems to notice. The monks pass through as if nothing's changed. But you need to turn your shoulders sideways to avoid brushing the stone. You begin to keep records. A tiny notch in the corner of the doorframe each time the wall moves. A mark on the floor each morning. After a week, the room is nearly half its size. The walls are closing in, but the monastery remains the same outside. No one believes you. Worse, some monks begin to vanish. One by one, their names fade from the scrolls. Their beds are stripped bare. Even their echoes are gone from stone. You only remember them because of a smudge, a faint impression left in your mind like pressed wax. Then one day your cot is gone. Your cell now ends at your knees. The stone has sealed off the back half of the room. You kneel there in the half space, pressing your hand to the cold wall, and it presses back. The abbot finally speaks to you. He summons you in silence, no bells, no messengers, just a sense that you should go. You find him in the chapel, alone, eyes closed. He doesn't open them when he speaks. You've reached the 13th compression. Most monks never notice before the 15th. You ask him what it means. The monastery, he says slowly, is a living thing. It breathes. It forgets. Sometimes it builds walls to protect itself. Sometimes it walls things in because it remembers. You ask what it remembers now. You, he says simply, or rather what came with you. He opens his eyes then, and you see that one of them is gone. Not missing, but bricked over. Just a smooth, gray, blinking stone. You flee back to your cell. You find your candle has melted upright into a perfect spiral. Your robe is folded into the wall itself. The ceiling presses lower than ever, and scrawled across the last remaining patch of bare stone are words in a hand that isn't yours. There was no room, so we made one. You look around. Your cell has no door, only a wall, and it's still moving. You begin to notice him during lauds. He stands at the edge of the chapel near the second column, the one that's always colder than the others. Not praying, not chanting, just waiting. You don't recall when he joined the monastery. He doesn't appear on the roll. No one calls his name, but each morning he's there. Same robe, same sandals, but the rope cincture around his waist is tied backwards, a detail only someone raised in the order would get wrong. And the cord is fraying at the ends, like it's been severed, not unknotted. One morning after the bell, you follow him. He doesn't glance back, but he knows. He leads you past the herb garden, past the stone steps carved with Latin so old no one can read it anymore, and into the scriptorium, which is empty. No ink, no vellum, only dust. And yet he sits at a blank desk and begins to write. You step closer. The page is empty, but his quill moves, scratches. His hand flows like he's transcribing sacred truth. You see no words, just faint indentations in the parchment, as if the ink existed in a spectrum you couldn't perceive. You lean in and catch a glimpse of the page edge. There's a date at the top, Vigil of Saint Bjornwyn, 1293. But it's impossible. Today is the Vigil of Saint Bjornwyn, in the year 1292. You whisper, "Are you from the future?" He doesn't respond. He just lifts his hand and points to the shelf behind you. You turn and see a scroll. It wasn't there before. You pick it up. The seal is broken, the wax brittle. Unrolling it slowly, your eyes scan the name at the top. Your name, followed by entries. Entered monastery year of the great comet. Received robe and vows. Assigned cell 7. Compression began, unnoticed. Wall observed on third moon. Resisted the pull. Observed the monk. Tempted to change fate. You stop. There's one final line, written in a shaky hand. Did not succeed. You look up. The monk is gone. The desk is gone. The scriptorium is gone. You're standing in a corridor now, narrow and lined with smooth stone walls on either side. At the end of the hallway, your cell. Its door is sealed. Later that evening, you ask the abbot about the man. He simply says, "There is no such monk. Not yet. He may exist when you no longer do." The next morning, the monk is back. Only this time, he's standing behind you at lauds. No one else reacts. And when the bell tolls the final note, he leans close and whispers, voice dry as crumbling parchment. We all write our own names into the stone. Then he steps forward and passes through the wall, not into a door, not into a hallway, just into the stone, like a ripple through water. And for a moment, just a heartbeat, you can see the outline of his hand behind the wall, still writing. The boards creak in rhythm as you kneel. Lauds has just ended, and the chapel is mostly empty, except for the groan of old oak beneath you and that faint rustling underneath the floorboards. Again, at first you assumed it was rats. Everyone did. But Brother Thomas, who's been trapping vermin since he had teeth, hasn't caught a single one in weeks. And there are no droppings, no scratching, just movement, soft, slow, deliberate, like something pacing or praying. You stay behind after the monks file out, pretending to tie your sandal longer than necessary. You glance around once, no one watching, then press your ear to the floor. Silence. You're about to laugh at yourself when, thud, you jerk back. It wasn't beneath your ear. It was beneath your knee. You place your palm on the wood, fingers splayed. There, a subtle warmth, like someone recently breathed on the planks. Then you hear it again. Awa, awa, a long, rhythmic exhale. Not animal, not wind, breath. Later that day, you find yourself in the archives. Not looking for anything in particular, of course, just browsing. But somehow you end up in the shelf labeled Architectura Sacra, Foundations and Secretum. One scroll is misplaced, faintly burned at the edges. You unroll it. The layout of the monastery, detailed, layered. But the chapel's foundation doesn't match what you've seen. According to the scroll, the choir rests on top of an older structure, a buried chamber, a circular room, no door, no window, sealed by the choir floor itself. You whisper aloud, a crypt, but in the margin, someone had written in shaky Latin, not crypt, not tomb, containment. You return that night, alone, armed with a candle, a borrowed pry bar, and a very flimsy sense of bravery. The candle's flame flickers violently as you kneel on the same board. Feels warm again, breathing again. You slide the bar into the seam and lift. Dust erupts upward, centuries old. Beneath the plank, stone. But not just any stone. Carved. You brush away the dust. Symbols. Script you don't recognize. And in the center, a circular vent no wider than your wrist. From it you hear, Miserere me, a whisper, a voice, speaking Latin, pleading. You whisper back, who's there? No reply. You lean closer. What are you? A pause. Then, not what, who I was once, and what you will be soon. The voice is tired, like wet pages turning in a flooded library. You want to run, but your hand touches the stone again, and you see it, just for a flash. A face behind the vent, pale, hollow-eyed, no lips, not skull, not flesh, something in between. You flee. The chapel door slams behind you on its own. The bell for Compline rings early that night. The next morning, the abbot tells you not to speak of what you've seen. He knows. They all know. He explains, in carefully chosen words, that long ago a monk began digging beneath the choir, seeking solitude, communion, or perhaps power. He found something older than the monastery, older than Christianity, and so they sealed it, not to punish it, but to protect everything else. It still prays, the abbot says softly. We hear it sometimes. Then he leans in, places a withered hand on your shoulder, and whispers. And sometimes it hears us back. You avoid the choir for weeks, until one night you're awoken by humming, a Gregorian chant, familiar, off-key, coming from under your cot. You don't sleep again that night. The monastery keeps no official list of miracles. You've asked. The archivist, a dry and ancient soul with parchment-colored skin, laughed gently and said, "If we wrote them down, they'd stop happening. But there are stories that float. Half whispers over stew, muttered prayers behind cloister doors, that aren't quite miracles. They're disturbances. And one name always rises above the rest, Brother Severus. You're not sure when you first heard it. Maybe it was when a novice accidentally called the wrong name during evening roll call, and 3 monks went silent, stiff, pale as vellum. Or when someone found a candle burning by itself in the north cloister, beside a cell that had been empty for 80 years. Empty, except for Brother Severus's journal. You're told not to read it, which, of course, is how you end up alone in your chamber, spine prickling, candle fluttering, with the journal in your lap. The leather is cracked like sun-blistered skin, the edges faintly singed. Inside, the first page reads, "In nomine Domini, should I die, do not mourn. Should I return, do not rejoice." The entries are strange, elegant Latin with the precision of a man who feared forgetting. He writes of dreams, but not his. They bleed through the walls. Sleep has become communal. I do not dream my own thoughts anymore. You feel your throat tighten. You skip ahead. The middle entries become clinical. He describes cold in the bones even by day. He talks about his heart slowing, his breath stalling, and how he learned to sit completely still for hours, sometimes days, without moving. "They thought me dead once. Buried me near the orchard. I heard the dirt fall. It was peaceful. I awoke 3 nights later, undug myself, returned to Vespers before anyone noticed." You stop reading. Your heart is thudding in your ears. You remember that grave, a small, unmarked one. You've walked past it a dozen times. You thought it was a child's. A week later, a strange odor spreads through the dormitory. Not rot, something else. Wet stone, burnt myrrh, cold metal. You follow it like a sleepwalker until you reach the north cloister. And there he is, sitting, Brother Severus, not breathing, not blinking, but unmistakably alive. His robe is monastic, but older than yours, darker, unfaded. His hands are folded over a rosary whose beads are cracked and blackened. He turns his head slowly, and you see that his lips have been stitched shut. Your breath catches, but he nods, just once, as if to say, "Yes, you see me now." Then he rises and walks into the wall. Not disappears, walks into it. The stone doesn't ripple. It swallows. You scream. Monks arrive. They find nothing, but no one scolds you. They only look tired. One of them, a brother you barely know, puts a hand on your shoulder and says quietly, "We don't mention him. We never have." But they did, once. You find the record weeks later, hidden inside an old breviary. A single sentence. Brother Severus volunteered to test the vigilum rite. He succeeded. He has not died since. You look up vigilum. It means of the watchers. You don't sleep that night. And then the real horror begins. Because he starts appearing to you. Only you. Not every night, just often enough. Always the same. Standing by your bed, lips still stitched, rosary still clutched, with eyes like dried ink. He doesn't move. He just watches. Sometimes for seconds, sometimes for hours. You try reporting it. The abbot listens, nods, then says, "If he's watching you, it means the rite is choosing you. You want to leave, but the monastery has no records of your entrance. No one remembers you arriving. The gates are locked from the inside, and you are being prepared. You begin to sit still longer, breathe slower, eat less. Your heart forgets its rhythm. One morning, you open your eyes and realize you hadn't blinked all night. The next time Severus appears, he reaches out and hands you something small, a blackened needle, thread still attached. They tell you it was never meant to be used. The chapel beneath the chapel. A second sanctum carved directly into the mountain's cold stomach. Older than the monastery, older than Rome, perhaps. A space no one speaks of, because no one can. It's the only room where sound dies. Not muffled, not silenced, erased. You first learn about it after Severus gives you the blackened needle. You ask the abbot what it means, hoping naively for a riddle, a metaphor, a shrug. But instead, he turns pale and says, "He gave it to you in silence?" You nod. Then the Vigilum Chapel has chosen you, and he walks away. That night, you are summoned, not by bell, but by a shadow. A monk whose face you never see, hood pulled low, hands clasped backward, walking as if his feet don't fully touch the floor. You follow him, through cloisters slick with dew, past doors that don't appear on the monastery's plans, down stairs made of rough-cut stone, deeper, deeper, until even the candles seem to flicker more slowly. He stops before an archway carved with words you don't recognize. Not Latin, not Greek. They seem to move when you look too long. The monk gestures you inside and disappears. The Vigilum Chapel is colder than you imagined. Not icy still. The air doesn't move. Your breathing sounds sharp in your skull until you realize something horrifying. You're not hearing it. You're feeling it. Every sound is internalized. Your heartbeat drums in your teeth. Your footsteps throb in your knees. You open your mouth to whisper a prayer. Nothing emerges. Not a breath. Not a sigh. It's not that your voice is gone. It's that this room does not allow it. You kneel, and you listen. Time becomes meaningless. You don't know if you've been there minutes or hours. The candle flames don't flicker. The wax doesn't drip. Eventually, something shifts. A shimmer. A figure seated at the far end of the chapel. Not moving. Severus? No, older. His robe predates cloth. He has no eyes. Only the suggestion of sockets beneath a thin veil. His hands are pressed over his chest in a posture of eternal silence. And in his lap, a door, small, wooden, no frame, no hinges, just a rectangle carved from oak, charred around the edges. It should not exist, but it does. He beckons you forward without moving. You approach, and as you reach out, you hear something, not from the room, from your own bones, a whisper crawling from inside your ribs. The door is not to keep you out. It is to keep him in. You recoil, but your hands don't obey. They move forward and place the needle on the small door. It melts into the grain, as if it was always meant to return. The figure nods, once, and then the world goes black. You wake in your own bed, sweat-soaked, shivering, needleless. You stumble to the mirror. There on your lips, faintly visible, a stitch. One, just one. You try to scream, but the sound never makes it out. You haven't eaten since the Vigilum Chapel. You haven't wanted to. Every time you lift bread to your lips, your throat rebels. Every time you pass the refectory, a smell, just on the edge of memory, makes your stomach knot like a noose. But today, they summon you for a special meal. One served only once a year. The table is already set when you arrive. Long, stark, and perfectly still, like a body laid out for burial. No one speaks. No one chews. And no one, you notice, is actually eating. They're waiting for someone. Then she enters, not a monk, not a nun, a woman in a long crimson veil that brushes the floor like bleeding thread. She walks barefoot. Her ankles are ringed with dust and what might be salt. Her eyes are not downcast like everyone else's. They burn. And when she reaches the head of the table, she lifts her hands, and the meal begins. No one prays. No one gives thanks. Not even a whisper of grace. Just the slow, rhythmic clinking of utensils. The scrape of wood bowls against worn stone. You sit. A plate is placed in front of you. Coarse bread, bitter greens, and a bowl of stew that smells like metal. No meat, but too rich to be only vegetable. You pick up the spoon and see your reflection in it. Except it's not you. Not exactly. The face looking back blinks a second too late, moves a little too slowly, and then smiles. You don't eat, but you watch. You watch as Brother Thomas takes a bite and begins to sweat. Watch as Sister Clotilde's hands tremble with the bowl halfway to her mouth. Watch as Severus, stoic, unshaken Severus, takes one single sip and closes his eyes for a full 5 minutes. You think of the silence in the Vigilum chapel, of the way the needle disappeared, and suddenly the pattern begins to make a terrible kind of sense. This isn't a meal, it's a test. Centuries ago, they say the monastery welcomed guests, pilgrims, nobles, wayward priests in search of penance. One such man, Father Gillum, arrived with a host of followers and a wagon load of forbidden texts. He claimed to have eaten with angels. He demanded to break bread in the monastery refectory, to teach the monks what true communion tasted like. 3 days later, every bell tower cracked in half. The records don't explain how or why, only that, since then, the monastery observes 1 meal per year where no blessing is spoken. No name is invoked. No God is thanked, because to do so would invite attention. The woman in the crimson veil walks behind each monk as they eat. Some she passes without pause. Others, she stops behind them, whispers something only they can hear. Some nod, some weep, one chokes, but she never touches a single person until she reaches you and stops. She doesn't whisper, she stares, then lifts one hand, long fingers stained dark at the tips, and points to your bowl. And in the stew you see it, floating like a forgotten coin. The needle, you know better, but you reach for it, and as your fingers close around it, your spoon clatters to the floor. The woman is gone. The monks are gone. The food is gone. Only the table remains, empty, except for your bowl, and your reflection in it. Now smiling openly and sobbing, you stagger backward out of the refectory, out into the corridor, and collapse against the wall. No one saw you enter. No one sees you leave. You open your palm. The needle is there, but it's no longer black. It's red. Later that night, as you lie in bed, stomach empty but still aching, you hear the faintest voice, inside your ear or inside your blood, you don't know. To consume the sacred is to become the sacrament. You don't sleep, not that night, not ever again, not fully, because every time your eyes close, you taste iron and see her veil. You've grown used to the cold, the kind that clings to stone like moss. You've even learned to appreciate its bite, how it wakes you up before the bells, how it silences the body's hungers. Cold in this monastery is a form of grace. It sharpens. But this room, this new room they send you to, has no temperature at all. You don't notice it at first. It's plain like the rest. Thick stone walls, a wooden bench, a sliver of candlelight. You sit. You wait. A ritual, you assume. a new trial. But then you touch your robe. Your fingers feel the fabric, but not the warmth of your skin beneath it, nor the coolness of air. Your breath clouds, only once, then not again. You lick your lips, no taste. You shift your legs, no ache. The air isn't cold. It isn't warm. It isn't. The monks don't explain. They simply call it the tuning room, as if you are a lute or a bell, as if something inside you must be adjusted. You laugh a little at the absurdity. It echoes strangely, no resonance, like throwing a pebble into a pond and hearing no splash. You try again, still nothing. So you stop. There is no ticking, no wind outside, no insects, no human sound at all. And it's only then you realize you're not sure how long you've been sitting here. An hour? A day? Time isn't passing, or at least not in a way you can follow. You scratch your arm to feel something, anything, but your skin feels like paper, waxy, unalive. There is a story they told you once early in your novitiate, maybe even the first week, about a monk who stayed so still in prayer that time forgot him. He disappeared entirely. Some say he achieved perfect silence. Others say he was eaten by it. Your throat itches, not a normal itch, not physical, something behind it, like a memory forming backwards. You try to remember your own name. You can't. You try to remember your voice. Nothing. You try to say amen. Your mouth moves. Your breath moves. But no sound comes. You are not muted. You are unpitched. You stumble to the wall and knock 3 times. Then 4. Then 7. It doesn't matter. The knocks are soundless. But the door opens anyway. A monk peers in. Not one you recognize. His robe is wrong. It's gray, dusty. The hood is shaped differently. And when he speaks, you don't hear it in your ears. You feel it in your lungs. Some rooms take. This one takes pitch, temperature, time. But be grateful. It leaves the soul untouched. You open your mouth to ask what that means. But he's already gone. And so is the door. You collapse back onto the bench. A second candle has appeared. You didn't see it before. This flame doesn't flicker. It's just on, like a memory someone else is having. You hold your hands to it. Still no warmth. Still no cold. But something in your chest begins to vibrate, like a tuning fork being struck gently, again and again. You realize you're humming, not with your voice, with your bones. And then the room disappears. No flash, no sound, no motion, just gone. You're standing outside the abbey. It's snowing, or raining. You can't feel which, but you're certain of one thing. The needle is no longer red. It's silver again, and vibrating faintly, as if it's been attuned. There's a new heaviness in your step, not physical. Your body feels lighter than ever, like it's been hollowed out and rethreaded with spider silk. But somewhere just behind the ribs, there's weight. You recognize it as meaning, the kind that settles into your bones when something wants to be remembered. The door you re-enter isn't familiar, but it's part of the abbey. That's how these things work now. You've stopped wondering how doors appear, how staircases bend back on themselves like knots. This isn't a place made for logic. It's a place made for vows. You pass under a low arch carved with letters that don't belong to any language you know. They shimmer like dust motes. Your eyes refuse to hold them. Inside is a room filled with books, thousands of them. No shelves, just stacks, tall, towering, swaying under their own impossible weight. Every book bound in skin, some of it human, some not quite. A monk with blank eyes gestures to a desk. There's a single page waiting for you, blank. You sit not because you want to, but because that's what the room wants. Your fingers itch again the same way they did in the map room. The quill appears without fanfare. You don't even see it placed. Just one moment it isn't there. Then it is. The tip is red, but not with ink. You pick it up, and the moment you do, your hand begins to write without your permission. The name that appears first is yours, not the name you've used all your life, not the one your parents gave you, not the Latinized version scrawled on your baptismal record. No, the first name, the one you were never told, the one that only God and old things know. Your stomach twists as you read it. It doesn't belong in your mouth. It's not a sound, it's a shape, a geometry of identity, and below it more names spill forth, each one a person you've never met, or maybe you have, in dreams, in shadows, in lifetimes that weren't quite yours. You try to stop your hand, but it won't. Keeps writing, names that flicker like candlelight, names with no vowels, names shaped like questions. Some are full sentences. One is a scream, another is just, the girl who stood in the fire and didn't blink. You don't know what to make of that, but the moment you read it, your mouth tastes like ash. Hours pass, or minutes, or centuries. You finish the page. The quill vanishes. You blink, and now the desk is covered in thousands of other pages, all with your handwriting. Somehow you've written every name that doesn't exist, yet still might. A monk appears again, this one smaller, older, his hands folded as though in grief. He holds out a bowl. It's filled with water. You glance inside. Your face stares back, but not your current face. A younger one, eyes more naive, lips shaped like a question mark. You haven't seen this version of yourself in years, and you feel a pang, not of sadness, but of strangeness, as though you're a guest inside your own history. The monk nods toward the bowl. Names are maps, he says, but some maps don't lead anywhere you want to go. Then he lifts it, and without waiting, pours the water over your head. You gasp. The sensation is sharp, like pins of ice driven into your scalp. The world rushes backward. You fall, but you don't hit the ground. You land on a pile of books. You're in the same room. The pages are gone. Your hands are clean. The monk is nowhere to be seen, but a voice, your own, maybe, echoes faintly from the rafters. The name you will need comes last. Speak it only when the doors stop appearing. You rise, shake off the dust, look toward the far end of the room. There's a new door there. It has no handle, no lock, just a phrase carved deep into the frame. You are almost ready. You place your palm on it. The wood is warm this time, and as it swings open, a new scent hits your nose. Incense, yes, but something else. Something like smoke. You don't remember stepping forward, but now you're inside it. The hallway, longer than it should be, darker than it needs to be, and absolutely silent, except the air itself crackles. Not loudly, not like thunder, but like the soft hiss of a wick refusing to catch fire. The walls are blackened stone, but not charred. No soot, no ash, just memory of fire, as if heat passed through centuries ago and left behind its signature. There are alcoves lining the hall, and in each a figure stands. Statues, you think at first, until one blinks. These are monks, or once were. Their robes are wrong, stitched in patterns no monastic order should permit. Symbols embroidered along the hems like teeth. Some wear hoods, some do not. Some have mouths stitched shut, and yet they look at you, every one. You don't know what you've walked into, but you're certain of one thing. This is not a place for the living. One of the monks speaks. You hear nothing, but your bones ring. like tuning forks tapped against marble. Your spine straightens involuntarily. Another monk gestures toward a lantern. It's the only source of light in the hall. Small, flickering, burning with a pale blue flame. You lift it, and the shadows flinch. As you walk forward, each alcove reveals a new story. They're not written, they're shown, in flashes of memory you can't stop or control. One alcove, a monk pouring wax into his ears to block the devil's lullaby. Another, a nun burying a crucifix in a patch of earth that never grows anything again. A third, a barefoot figure sleeping in a ring of knives, dreaming of purgatory and waking with hands clean of blood. These aren't saints in the canon. They're the ones who refused sainthood. You reach the midpoint of the hallway, and the blue flame sputters. You look down. Your hand is bleeding, not from a wound. The blood seeps out of your palm, slowly, purposefully, like the body is trying to give something away. It trickles into the lantern, and the flame flares, not blue now, white hot, pure, painful. You squint, and suddenly all the monks are kneeling. You hear it now, the voice that wasn't meant for ears. Do you carry the fire, or does the fire carry you? You don't answer, not because you can't, but because it's not your place. Not yet. You walk forward, past the kneeling figures. Each of them lifts their head as you pass, not in reverence, but in warning. At the far end of the hall is a mirror, tall, frameless, its surface like still water in a stone basin. But your reflection isn't alone. There's another figure beside you, shrouded in ash-colored robes, face hidden, hands folded like they're praying for your failure. You blink. They're gone. The mirror cracks, just once, a single fracture running from top to bottom like a split in reality. And as it does, the stone beneath your feet hums with heat. Something is waking, not behind the mirror, but inside you. The lantern goes out. You feel no fear. You feel expected, like someone somewhere has been waiting for you to pass this test for a very long time. A breath not yet exhaled. The cracked mirror swings open. There's a staircase behind it. Stone. Spiral. Worn down by 1,000 forgotten feet. No light. No railing. No certainty. You step onto the first stair. It sighs beneath your weight, and you descend into whatever the abbey wants to show you next. Down you go. The steps are narrow, slick with a dew that never dries, and curved so tightly you can't see more than a few feet ahead. Your hand traces the wall beside you. Stone, cool and strangely soft? No, not soft. Fleshy, like a surface that once was stone but has long since begun remembering something older. Something living. You feel it pulse under your fingertips. Just once. The stairwell coils like a serpent, deeper and deeper into the earth. There's no lantern, no torch, no moonlight to follow. And yet, somehow you see faint silhouettes, bleeding shapes in the dark. Enough to not fall, but not enough to understand. That's how the abbey likes it. Understanding, after all, invites resistance. And resistance gets you nowhere. Your thoughts begin to drift. Time stretches. You can't tell if you've been descending for minutes, hours, or longer. The spiral has a rhythm now. Left foot, right foot. The slow, soft beat of your heart becoming a metronome for descent. You realize if you stop, you might never start again. This stairwell feels like a choice disguised as a path. The longer you walk it, the more you belong to it. The last, a landing, a circular chamber, empty except for a single object, a rope, thick, woven from hair. It descends through a hole in the floor like a plumb line dropped into the mouth of the world. There's no ladder, no elevator, just this, You look down and feel something stare back. You grip the rope. It's warm, slightly damp. It smells faintly of rose water and old breath. Hand over hand, you lower yourself into the darkness. For a moment, the silence holds you. Then, whispers, faint, almost melodic. They don't speak a language you know, but you understand them anyway. All monks descend eventually, some with bodies, others only with soul. But all go down. You reach the bottom, a chamber lit by bioluminescent moss, pale green veins on the walls, like ivy made of starlight. At the center, a well, but this isn't for water. It's lined with mirrors, set at uneven angles. You peer in. Your reflection shivers, though you do not. It ages, it smiles, turns away from you, and walks off, deeper, deeper into the mirror's depths. Beside the well, a wooden lectern, and upon it, a book. You touch it. It doesn't feel like paper. It breathes, once, then lies still. You open it. There are no words, only ink blots, but the blots move when you blink. Shapes coalesce. You see monks burying something beneath the floorboards of the abbey. A door, with no hinges, no handle, no frame, just a flat slab of wood painted black and nailed shut from the outside. They whisper the same phrase over and over. You can't hear it, but you feel it in your blood. You close the book. You now know something you shouldn't, and that knowledge changes the space. The chamber begins to collapse, not violently, but like a room being forgotten. The rope is gone, so is the stairwell. You're not trapped, just held, like a breath in the chest of the earth. Then a voice, closer this time. You pass through fire, now pass through shadow. A creak. Behind you, the air splits. A crack opens in the mosslit wall. Not a door, not quite, but an invitation. Beyond it, a corridor lined with relics. Familiar shapes, crosses, censers, icons, but every one subtly wrong. A Jesus with his eyes open in death. A Mary wearing gloves made of bone. A rosary of teeth. You step forward. The stone seals behind you. No turning back. You walk now not downward, but inward. Each step a question. Each breath a confession. And still the abbey waits, because the deeper truth, the one behind the room with no door, has not yet shown itself, but it will, very soon. Your feet make no sound on the stone floor, not because you're quiet, but because this hallway absorbs noise. Each breath you take vanishes into the velvet air, like water into sand. Even your heartbeat feels distant, as if it belongs to someone walking beside you. But you're alone. At least, that's what the corridor wants you to believe. The walls are not smooth here. They're grooved, etched with 1,000 thin scars. Some deliberate, carved symbols and sigils, others chaotic, like claw marks, or the record of something trying and failing to escape. A torch flickers ahead. You didn't light it. It sways gently, as if a breathless crowd had just passed through. The flame casts long shadows on the walls, but none belong to you. Along the corridor are display cases, not the glass kind. No, these are wooden boxes, each with a small curtain drawn across the front. The first one you reach bears a brass plaque, the tongue of Saint Marcellus. You slide the curtain open. Inside, a blackened leathery organ, shriveled like dried seaweed, rests on a silk pillow. It twitches when it senses light. You step back, and the curtain slides shut on its own. You pass another, the Eye of the Watcher. There's nothing inside at first, just a dark cavity. Then, slowly, a pale blue eye rises into view, unblinking, enormous. It does not reflect you, but something behind you. When you turn, the hallway is empty. But it was never just a hallway, was it? It's a confession, and you've only just begun to speak. Farther along, the corridor narrows. The relics grow stranger. A glass jar filled with tiny teeth. A set of wax lips that move in silence. A crucifix carved entirely out of fingernails. You pass. The rope of the nameless monk. Frayed, stained, still warm. The bell that rang beneath the ground. Muffled. But if you lean close, it rings once for you. The veil of the widow saint. It flutters when you're near, though there's no wind. Then you reach it. The final case. No plaque, no curtain, just a single object. A wooden door, perfectly square, roughly the size of a dinner plate. It lies flat in the case, as if torn off a dollhouse. Painted black, no knob, no lock, only a dozen rusted nails driven into the edges, sealing it shut. But it's not a relic of the abbey. It's a model, a memory, a warning, and a promise. Your fingertips brush its surface through the glass. You see, monks, dozens of them, weeping in silence as they hammer the door shut. Not into a wall, but into a man. He does not scream. He only smiles. He goes willingly. You pull your hand back. The case begins to rattle. The wood inside pulses once, like a heartbeat. Then the entire corridor exhales. The air behind you vanishes. You are funneled forward, drawn toward the final stretch. At the end of the hall, a curtain, crimson, velvet, heavy with dust and incense. It hangs across an archway that leads, nowhere visible. A soft wind pushes it inward, then lets it fall again. You hear chanting beyond it, familiar voices, though you've never heard them before. You pause. You know now what the room without a door really is. Not a room, not a prison, not even a secret. It's a threshold, and you're standing on its edge. There will be no coming back through this curtain, only through yourself. The veil parts, and the abbey speaks. You step through the crimson curtain, and the world changes. No dramatic collapse of space, no thunderclap, no sudden burst of light. Just a difference, subtle, heavy, like you've stepped from air into syrup. Everything feels thicker here, your limbs, your thoughts, your silence. This is the place they do not show visitors. The monks don't speak of it in manuscripts. The blueprints of the abbey skip over it entirely. And yet it has always been here. You see no walls, no ceiling, just columns, towering pillars that rise beyond the reach of torchlight, chiseled from the same stone as the abbey, but older, somehow much older. They bear no moss, no dust, no cracks. Instead, they are wrapped with lines of text, carved in languages you don't know, but instinctively understand. They whisper as you pass, and the whispers are all names. You come to the first figure, a monk seated cross-legged at the base of a pillar, hands folded, eyes closed, but not asleep, not dead, breathing. You kneel beside him, and he exhales, slow, shallow, steady. Then he opens one eye. It's not surprise or fear you see in him. It's recognition, and something else, pity. Before you can speak, he closes his eye again, as if to say, "Not yet." You walk on. There are more now, dozens, hundreds, some kneeling, some standing with arms outstretched, mouths open in silent hymn. One is pressed to a wall, hands fused with the stone, lips moving in endless prayer. Another floats inches above the ground, suspended by ropes of hair grown impossibly long, tangled into the rafters you can't see. You pass one who holds a book with no pages, one who weeps ink, one who wears a mask that looks like your face. None speak, none move, yet all are aware, and you feel yourself drawn into their stillness, as if motion is the only sin that still matters. You reach a circle of 13 monks seated around a stone basin. Their heads are shaved, their faces gaunt. They wear identical robes, stitched with identical prayers. One turns to look at you and the rest follow. Perfect synchronicity. The basin is empty, but as they stare, something begins to fill it. Not water, not blood, but your reflection. Except, it isn't a reflection of who you are now. It's a version of you with your mouth sewn shut, your eyes weeping candle wax, your chest hollow, your ribs ringing softly like bells in the silence. You look up, they're gone. So is the basin. You're back in the hall of columns. Only now the chanting has begun. It's everywhere. Above you, below you, within you. The words have no source, but they strike the inside of your skull like hammers. You can't remember when the sound started, only that it's always been here. It isn't meant to be heard. It's meant to undo hearing. You stumble forward until the chanting softens, then stops. Before you now a statue, 12 feet tall, cloaked, hooded, no face, just a gaping hole where a head should be. Inside it, nothing but dark. A darkness so deep, it feels like it's swallowing light itself. At the base, a plaque. He who left first, the founder, the monk who discovered this room. He never left it, not because he couldn't, but because once he entered, he understood there was no other side. The monks here, they aren't trapped, they aren't hiding, they're waiting, not for salvation, not for death, for you. And behind the statue, there it is, the wall, not an illusion, not metaphor, a real wall, no windows, no markings, no door, only a chair, simple, wooden, waiting, facing the wall. The monks have given you no instructions, but somehow you know exactly what's expected. You walk to the chair, you sit, you face the wall, and for the first time in your life, you stop looking for a way out. The air presses in, the voices fade, the silence becomes your name, and the wall, slowly, begins to listen. You don't know how long you've been sitting. Time has turned thick and flavorless, like cold soup. But the wall in front of you hasn't changed. Not really. It's still solid, still blank, still doorless. And yet, it knows you're here. You feel it not in your skin, but somewhere beneath it. A gaze without a face, an attention that doesn't blink. The wall is looking. You try not to move. The monks didn't move, did they? You remember their stillness now, not lifeless but chosen, as if the act of remaining motionless was a prayer in itself. A challenge, a vow. You follow their example. You breathe, you wait, you listen. The first thing you notice is the shift in sound. No longer silence, not exactly. A faint scraping, like chalk dragged across slate, is coming from the wall. You narrow your eyes, and there, scratched into the stone, a line appears. Slowly, painfully, the wall is writing. The words arrive backward, as if you're looking at them from the wrong side of a page. But your mind bends to match their logic, and soon you can read, "You have come this far not by strength, but by hunger." A second line follows. All monks who stayed long enough became rooms themselves. You blink and realize the stone is no longer just stone. There's a face now, faintly visible in the grain. No faces, layered into the granite like smoke and ice. Their mouths do not move, but their eyes, they see you. One blinks, your heart skips. Another tilts its head slightly, almost curious. And then one opens its mouth. a vertical crack down the stone. No sound emerges, just wind. Not cold, not hot, but knowing. You can't describe it any better than that. It rushes past your ears and into your thoughts. You don't hear words. You remember them, but they're not yours. They're the memories of the wall, of the monks who became it. You see flashes, a candle in the palm of a dying novice, a scream swallowed beneath the abbey floor, a prayer spoken backward, yet heard by something forward, a door carved and then immediately erased, the face of a monk who smiled too wide and was never seen again. You feel their pain, their awe, their reverence, their decision. The wall says nothing, yet you understand. They chose this, because once you've seen beyond the monastery's last veil, once you've sat before the wall, you cannot go back. Not without losing something, not without cost. A crack forms beside the writing. Hairline, vertical. It grows, splits downward like a seam. Dust drifts from it, catching candlelight like snow. Then, a sound, a soft exhale, like someone behind the wall has just taken their first breath, or maybe their last. You lean forward, not out of fear, out of welcome. The wall is opening, not a door, something else. A passage, a memory, a choice. And the whisper comes not from around you, but within you. Come closer. You have not yet become. You stand. You place your palm against the stone. It's warm, and it is, undeniably, impossibly, breathing. The moment your fingers touch the wall, it exhales again. Longer this time, like a sigh that's been held for centuries. You expect the stone to stay firm, stubborn in its ancient solidity. But it doesn't. It gives, like old wax or skin. You press forward and feel resistance, not from the material but from something behind it. Something that isn't sure you belong. And for a heartbeat, neither are you. But it's too late now, isn't it? You push. The wall parts not cleanly but organically. A slow, stretching surrender. The way a mouth opens in sleep. And behind it, darkness. Not void, not terror. Something intentional. You step through. The passage seals behind you, not with sound, but with forgetting. If you tried to turn back now, you wouldn't even find where you came in. It's gone, and you are elsewhere. Takes your eyes time to adjust. This place is lit from nowhere and everywhere. A faint golden pulse, like firelight remembered but not seen. The walls are not carved, nor built, nor even natural. They're shaped by thought. Somehow you know that. The hallway curves, but not physically. Your footsteps feel different here. Not lighter, but less final. Like they don't matter unless you choose them to. You pass alcoves, shallow depressions in the stone. Each holds a single item. A spoon, a scrap of fabric, a tooth, a feather. Each one whispers, but not aloud. Not to you, to itself. You come to a chamber, perfectly round. A pool rests at its center, not water but memory. It stirs when you enter, reacting to your presence with polite curiosity. Like a cat who's decided you might be useful. You kneel. The surface shows nothing at first, just your reflection. But then it changes, and you see him, a monk, eyes closed, standing alone in this room. He opens his mouth, speaks words that are immediately forgotten, and in that forgetting they become sacred. You feel them in your spine. They are not meant for the mind, only for the act of speaking, only for the ritual. The scene shifts. Now he kneels, places his palm against the wall, the same one you touched. His breath catches. He smiles, and then slowly he begins to fade. Not vanish, not die, just blur. His body loses its outlines. His hands melt into light, his robes into shadow, and then he is gone, but not gone. You hear him whisper from the walls, "Still here." You look up. The chamber has changed. There are others now, not monks, not exactly forms. They surround the pool, heads bowed. Their presence hums like low thunder trapped in cloth. One lifts its face. No features, but you know it's watching you, and you know what it wants. A choice, not in words, but in being. If you step forward, if you enter the pool, you do not return the same. You do not remember the same. You do not dream the same. You stand. Your legs feel different, lighter, as if gravity now asks permission. You walk to the edge. The surface parts slightly in welcome. Warm, syrupy, eager. You kneel, dip your hand, and everything returns. The whispers, the bells, the sandals on flagstones, the baking of bread, the echo of chants, the fear in the eyes of novices, the comfort of the vow, the weight of the silence, the warmth of the fire, the chill of the tower, the secrets of the room without a door. All of it rushes back. You see it all, and then you feel yourself vanish, but not vanish. Shift. The room accepts you, and as the light dims, gently, slowly, like the closing of a book, you realize you were always here. You just didn't remember. You wake to silence, but not the empty kind. This is a silence filled to the brim, thick and trembling with meaning. Your body lies still, but the part of you that listens, it rises, not upward, not outward, inward. You remember the bells, or rather, you remember the absence of them, because there were no bells in this place. Not really, just the sense of bells, the space where bells should have been, and that, in its own way, is louder than ringing. You open your eyes. No ceiling, just dark stones sloping upward forever, mottled with faint glints of light, like stars hidden behind stained glass. You sit up slowly. The chamber around you has changed again. Or has it always been like this? You can't quite recall. There is a soft chime, not heard, felt. It quivers in your ribs, like a string being plucked deep inside your chest. Another follows, lower, wider. You glance around. There are no bells, no ropes, no belfry, just that resonance, like a memory echoing through a hallway with no walls. You stand, and now the floor responds. With every footstep, there is a tone. Not musical exactly, more like a language spoken in a dialect of pressure and pitch. You take a step, then another. Each one plays a note. Each one remembers something. You cross to a small archway no taller than your shoulders. Its edges are carved in spirals, not decorative but functional. You run your finger along the groove. It hums back. It's not a warning. It's an invitation. You stoop and enter. Inside, darkness again, but this time shaped. It has layers, depth, weight, and in that darkness, shelves, stacked high with things that should not make sound. Wool, wax, salt. Yet the room is alive with bells. Hundreds, thousands, none visible, and yet you hear them all. They ring only when you remember them. A monk's name you barely caught. A dream you had on your first night here. The scrape of spoon on clay bowl. The breathing of the boy beside you. The cough that never stopped. The soft clatter of a book falling shut. All bells. Each one tolls in your memory now. Soft, insistent, undeniable. You reach toward the nearest shelf. Your hand closes on nothing, but your palm grows cold, as if grasping absence. You close your fingers tighter. and a chime sounds clear and piercing. Your name, rung aloud, but not in any voice you've heard before, and you realize it's you, your voice, calling yourself back. You turn, startled. The walls shift. The floor curves. You are no longer alone. A monk stands across from you, face covered, hands folded, and around his neck, a cord with no bell. He lifts the cord toward you, places it gently in your hand. His voice is moss-soft. Silence has a sound if you stay long enough. Then he turns and vanishes, not into mist or darkness, but into memory. You hold the cord. Nothing dangles from it. But when you close your eyes, you hear it ring. Once, twice, and on the third, the room begins to fade. Everything turns dimmer. The shelves blur. The stones sigh. And from somewhere above, you hear that same gentle chime again. But this time, not from inside you. This one is external, calling you onward. The way ahead is open now. A soft, golden path beneath your feet, glowing faintly with every step. And you understand, the next room awaits. A place beyond bells, beyond silence. A place only the fully initiated may enter. Place with no name. And once again your footsteps begin, light as ever, and ringing with meaning. The corridor narrows, stone on either side, breathing warmth. Your shoulders brush the walls. The air is thick, not with dust, but with memory. You are walking toward a door. You're sure of it. You remember it clearly. Rough oak, iron studs, a rusted handle cold to the touch. You've seen it in dreams, heard it creak in stories, smelled the mildew that lingered beneath its frame. You've walked toward this door 100 times in your sleep, and now, at last, here it is. Except, it isn't. You stop, frown. The corridor ends. Flat stone. No hinge, no handle, no wood grain, just the blank curve of masonry. Your door, the door you remember, is gone. Or maybe it was never here at all. A cold breath coils up your spine. You reach out, palm flat against the wall. Smooth, cool, still. And then it pulses, just once, like the wall is breathing back. You snatch your hand away. A voice speaks, though not in words, not out loud. It arrives inside your skull, like thunder that forgot how to echo. What you remember is not the same as what was. You open your mouth, but nothing comes out. Only warmth, only fog. You blink, and now the wall is not stone. It is wood, not the rough oak you imagined. This wood is darker, older, gnarled like driftwood pulled from a drowned chapel. It hums under your touch. And now there is a handle. No iron. Bone. White, porous, shaped like the antler of some gentle beast. You reach for it. Hesitate. Then curl your fingers around the smooth curve. The door does not resist. It opens without a sound. What lies beyond is not light. Not darkness either. It is misremembering. A hallway filled with the things you thought you'd forgotten. The sound of your mother's voice on a cold morning. The first scripture you ever chanted. The rhythm of your heart the day you saw a dead man smile. All of them line the walls like icons in a shrine. But they flicker, warp, shift. One moment a child's drawing, the next a monk's diary entry, the next a face that looks like yours but isn't. You walk forward. Each step reverberates with doubt. Each breath feels borrowed. At the far end of the corridor, another door waits. This one you don't recognize at all. And for the first time in this entire journey, that makes you relieved, because the door you knew before was never real. But this one might be. You reach it. No handle this time, just an indentation, palm-shaped, waiting. You press your hand into the hollow. Fits perfectly. The stone melts. The wall becomes light. And the next room opens. Not with noise. Not with silence. But with a memory you haven't had yet. One that's still coming. One you're walking toward with every step. And behind you, the door you thought you knew never existed. The light welcomes you like breath. It doesn't blaze or blind. It wraps, like linen, like memory softened by time. You step through, and the world changes. This is not a room you enter. It is a room that enters you. There are no walls, no floor, no ceiling, but you feel enclosed, held, like something ancient has cupped its hands around your soul and whispered, "Stay here, just for a moment." Your feet sink slightly into what you're not sure, dust maybe, soft and warm and humming with forgotten prayers. The air smells like beeswax and stone and parchment long since burned. You turn, but there's no door behind you. You knew that would happen. Still, the realization hurts in a small, distant way, like forgetting a dream the moment you try to speak it aloud. You're in the room without a door now, and it's quiet, but not empty. All around you, floating, flickering, are fragments, pages, cloth, bits of bread, rosary beads, torn sleeves, pieces of monks who once walked these halls and left only the softest trace behind. They spin gently in the air, not chaotic, not frightening, just present. They're not here to haunt. They're here to witness. And so are you. A voice returns, not the same one as before. This one is older, slower. It wears the weight of time like velvet. You've come far. It doesn't ask. It knows. And what have you learned? You're not sure how to answer. You think about everything. The hours of silence, the sleepless nights, the narrow beds, the forbidden doors, the chanting, the hunger, the laughter, the fear, the faith, the rot, the warmth. You think about monks who built this room not to keep others out, but to keep something inside. They built a room without a door because some truths are not meant to leave. Not fully, not cleanly. You don't escape them. You absorb them, carry them, let them shape you in silence. You breathe deeply. You're not alone in here, but you're not with anyone either. That's the paradox, isn't it? It always was. A bell rings, faint, far away, like a memory of a memory. It tolls not for mourning or worship, but to close something, and you understand. The day is ending. The dream is fading. The monastery breathes its last into your lungs, and then sighs. You're ready to leave, but there's still no door. There never will be, and that's all right. You don't need one, because now the monastery is within you. You close your eyes and feel yourself drifting, not walking out, but carrying forward. What was hidden, what was sacred, what was unspeakably odd, and what was utterly, beautifully human. You are not the same. You were never meant to be. Now let it all fade. Let the monks return to their prayers. Let the stone rest cool in its slumber. Let the silence wrap you like a woolen cloak worn thin by centuries. Let the bells ring once more in a language you no longer need to understand. Sleep. You've earned it. There are no doors here. Only rest. Only time. Only the gentle hum of faith left behind.